Thank you.
Okay, we want to just bring to you a very brief report and to share with you a great concern that we have, as well as a request. But first of all, let me just remind you that when God was telling his story in the book of Genesis, he obviously began with chapter 1 and not chapter 3. That seems so obvious. But chapter 1 begins by talking about God's purpose. Had he started with chapter 3, he would have started with our fall, our disability, our brokenness. But God started out not with where we have fallen, but with a purpose that he has for us. To me, that's a very profound understanding of who God is and what he has in mind for us. And that, for me, lays the for special needs ministry. Special needs ministry officially began, in a brand new way at least, in 2015. A lot has happened in just 2 years, and we want to give you a brief overview of what has happened. But let me share with you the newly voted mission statement of this ministry. Special needs ministry seeks to inspire, equip, and mobilize those who are differently abled to serve God and community, as expressed in the mission statement of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So those three components comprise what this ministry represents: inspire, equip, and mobilize. A group of people that we often think of as simply making sure that we provide for them. We make sure we provide their rights. And this ministry does not focus on that, but it includes that, but it goes beyond that to inspire, equip, and mobilize them for ministry. Ellen White makes a very strong statement, and you've seen this no doubt before. She says, "I saw that it is in the providence of God that widows and orphans, the blind, the deaf, the lame, persons afflicted in a variety of ways have been placed in close Christian relationship to his church. It is to prove his people and develop their character." So one of the great objectives of this ministry is not only helping them, but in so doing, our own character develops. I must admit that I never had this on my radar, this ministry on the radar for myself, but it was providential. God has blessed me personally by becoming sensitized to a group of people that we often see off to the side. I told my wife when we're in the grocery store and we see someone in a wheelchair or someone who's blind or someone who's deaf, I'll say, "Those are one of my people." And I'd like to suggest to you that they are one of our people, that they too must be part of our mission objective. Now, this is a huge ministry, because if you take that statement by Ellen White and put it together, there are 6 different areas of ministry that special needs encompasses: the deaf, the blind, physically challenged, mentally or emotionally challenged, orphans, vulnerable children, caregivers. The whole area of caregivers came as I began looking at those first 5, and I realized that if we don't do something for them, the people who are working with them will burn out. And so we need to find a way of supporting caregivers. It might be of interest to you that in the U.S. alone, in the United States alone, there are 43 million caregivers, 34 million of which are unpaid. And these are individuals who are open to ministry, who are open to hearing the gospel in new ways, where we can give support to them. And so this ministry becomes very important. But also when we think about caregivers, there's also that area that Ellen White begins that we have not done a whole lot with, at least I haven't in this ministry. But as I began looking at it, the issue of widows becomes a very important issue. As I travel, especially overseas, I become sensitized to the fact that there are so many widows, especially in war-torn countries, poverty area. It may be of interest for you to know that the statistics show that there are 245 million widows today. 115 million of those widows live in abject poverty. Individuals who have serious need financially, materially, but also spiritually that we need to take a look at. Some time ago, I was an editor of a journal, and I did a number of interviews. And during that interview, I interviewed Joan Bova. Some of you have heard me talk about her before, but her testimony is one that we need to hear again. As a person, she told me, as a person with a disability, God has given me abilities too, right? So if you're smart as a church, you'll look at me and say, what are Joan Bova's abilities? Not asking, what can we do for you, but what are your abilities that you could put to use? And then she said this, you know, I'm not a disability. I am a person. And that wrestled with me, I wrestled with that thought, that conversation many nights as I would lay in bed thinking about this ministry and thinking about her. And I said, these people are wanting to feel like they too belong, that they too have a part in God's church. And so it raises the question, do we talk about disability versus a differently abled person? Do we talk about what a person cannot do, or do we talk about what they can do? And so our ministry here has begun to talk about the possibilities that these individuals have. These individuals need to know that they have a possibility, that they are something. But sometimes we're the ones who need to learn that. Sometimes we need to learn at them and say, what possibilities do they have that can contribute to the mission of our church? And so I appeal as I go around visiting that we make sure that they also have a place at the planning table of the local church, of the local conference, and the local union. That they too begin to have a place here. Just yesterday, we provided interpretation for the first time, I believe, for an annual council, and it was broadcast over Hope Channel. We're very excited about that, the first time. And there's a lot of historic firsts. We have another one that I'll tell you about in just a moment. But there's a lot that has happened in 2015, and some of you may not be aware of what is happening. So let me I don't have time to give a full report, but let me share with you some important developments. Some of you may not even know that we have a Hope Channel Deaf that is working today. It's an internet channel, and you can go to it by hopechanneldeaf.org, and you can view programs in 5 different languages. Now, sign languages, many of them, and captioning, many of them. And we're hoping to expand. Right now, we're working on adding Chinese to that. We have a number of programs that we'll be able to do in that. But we also have a special needs .adventist.org, which covers all 6 areas, which is becoming a resource website, where we have experts who contribute different articles and all those areas that I think would be helpful. And our original first website was the Adventist Deaf Ministries, sometimes referred to as ADMI. Adventist Deaf Ministries, or AdventistDeaf.org, is a place where the deaf internationally come, reports are given, news reports are given that are there. Recently, I was in Zimbabwe. One of the most interesting experiences I've had. It was a wonderful camp meeting that was there, and they said, by the way, because I was speaking for church, he said, be sure to make a call at the end of your sermon. And I made a call because they had evangelism going on, and I had the privilege of speaking. I was amazed. 34 people came forward. But this is the first time in my ministry, and I've had a number of meetings, but it's the first time in my ministry that I had 10 wheelchairs come forward. And I thought, how often do we overlook these simply because we're not giving them an invitation? 18 deaf were baptized as well. You see Tobias there at the top picture being baptized. He has no use of arms or legs. He's a very bright individual. And he was there, he was baptized, lowered into the water. It was very important. Then there was the first baptism of deaf ever in Burundi, and there were 42 baptized. So the message continues to grow and grow and grow. I received word. I didn't know about this, so I received it by email. But look at this, a historic meeting of blind, the largest meeting of ministries for the visually impaired or the blind in the South American division just happened. And the whole program was conducted by the blind. So the word is getting out. In just 2 years, there is a rapid movement. And as I tell people, what I see taking place is something that no human being can take credit for. There is something divine taking place. To me, this is one of the greatest signs of Jesus soon coming, because it is a sign that Jesus will never leave anyone behind. And we must not either. And I've been 2 or 3 times now to Morelos, a very large university in Mexico. And I need to say that there is something taking place at that university that is unique. We were just there. I brought a team with me, and we did an advisory there. But the president of the university has an unbelievable vision. The first time I was there, I spoke for the university church, and 3 students, 2 medical students, 1 dental student, came to me afterwards and said, listen, before you ever came, we just felt a very strong burden that we needed to learn how to sign in Mexican Sign Language. I said, amen. And it's another example of God working ahead. And right after that, the president said, we need to go outside because we want you to dedicate a handicap parking sign. Now, I've dedicated different things. I've dedicated in India motorcycles, but I've never dedicated a handicap sign. And the reason why he asked me to do that is because we are making this whole campus friendly for those who have limitations. We want them to know that this school is for them too. But that wasn't all. The president at this last meeting said, how many here who are deaf attending this advisory that we were doing, how many of you wish you could have had an education? How many of you wish you could go to university? 3 or 4 raised their hand because some of them were older. He says, consider it done. We will sponsor you at this university. You see, one of the great challenges of the deaf is not having opportunities because of, quotes, their limitations, but they will make a way for it. I must also say that my associate, we call him honorary associate, I get him for 30 days a year. The Georgia Cumberland Conference pays his salary, I pay his travel. And then I was surprised, but Andrews University made it possible through special arrangements for him to get his Master of Divinity, a 3-year degree, Greek and Hebrew. His wife was his interpreter for him. She didn't get the degree though, but he did. Now I want to challenge you. This is my request. I'm going back to Morelos next year. I'm also have an invitation to go to the university or college there in Italy. But I'd like to offer that suggestion to the rest of you as well. We need to have I would like to have maybe next year 6, 8, maybe 10 universities where we would have a weekend symposium, where we would work with your team, of your college professors or whoever that would be, and we would work together to have an awareness for the students for a weekend. We believe that we've established a foundation. And between now and next General Conference session, we must expand. And we must work to reach the next generation, or the present generation of leaders, young adults. And so I'm pleading with you to consider this for your university or your college, to make it possible. You don't have to use me, but I'm happy to come, I'm happy to help. But we must do something to help this next generation understand that these people that we often put behind disability parking signs are not people with disabilities, they are people with possibilities. And we must help the church begin to see that possibility. And I also like to suggest, we've been to almost every division. There's a couple divisions where we haven't been. But we need to have division advisories so that we can then move to union advisories. And those of you who may not know what advisories are, these are training sessions in which we acquaint and orient leaders to this ministry so that they can become sensitive to it. No one in this group here ever intentionally says we don't want special needs people to be with us. No one says that. But when it's not brought to our attention, we don't know about it. And so my appeal to you is to become aware. We have a 3A strategy. And the 3A strategy is, first of all, to become aware. Number 2 is to become accepting of these people. And accepting is more than putting their name on a list. It's more than simply being included. It's more than simply saying we believe in diversity in our campus or in our church or in our unit. It's more than that. It means creating a sense of belonging. Belonging is different than just simply being included on a list. And then finally, number 3, we need to develop action steps. Any vision needs action steps for it to be realized. And I'll close with this statement. Well, I have 2 last statements. This is a statement by Ellen White again. Angels of God are watching to see how we treat these persons who need our sympathy, love, and disinterested benevolence. I like to think that the angels in this room are listening and talking to you and speaking to me. I think of the statement by Mark Twain. Kindness is a language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. I'm going to challenge you. What can we do for these people? TMI is not complete without the special needs individuals having a part too. The mission of the church is not complete without these people having a part and being commissioned to go forward too. This is not simply a disability ministry. This is an mission advance ministry. And we must work together on this. Thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you.